The kerosene lamp on the nightstand had burned down to almost nothing, and I sat in the rocking chair beside our bed, holding my husband's hand in both of mine. His fingers were already cold. The doctor had left an hour earlier. The bishop had come and gone. My daughters had been sent home to their own families because that's what I asked for. I wanted to be alone with him, with Eli, the man I had married when I was 19 years old, in a barn full of 300 people, the man whose hand had built every piece of furniture in this house, the man who had just stopped breathing 23 minutes ago, in the bed we had shared for 61 years. If you want to go deeper, the full Amish Insider Guide is in the description. And what I did next, sitting there in the lamplight beside his body, is something I have never told anyone. Not my children, not my sister, not the bishop who came back the next morning, because what I did was forbidden. And what I did was the most honest thing I have ever done in my entire life. My name is Martha. I am 80 years old. I grew up Old Order Amish in Lancaster County, and I share the stories we were never allowed to speak out loud. If you value hearing the truth about Amish life from someone who has actually lived 8 decades inside of it, please subscribe and tap the like button and tell me in the comments. Where are you listening from tonight? I read every single one. Now, before I tell you what I did that night, I have to explain something that took me 60 years of marriage to understand. In the Amish world, death has a script, just like marriage has a script, just like courtship has a script. Every single moment of your life, from the day you are born until the day they lower you into the ground in a plain pine box, is written for you before you arrive. When an Amish husband dies, here is what is supposed to happen. You sit with the body, yes, but you do not weep loudly. Loud grief is hochmut. It is pride. It is making your sorrow into a spectacle, and a faithful woman does not make spectacles. You wash the body with the help of other women from the church district. You dress him in the white burial clothes he has owned for years, often the same shirt he wore on his wedding day, kept folded in a cedar chest, for exactly this purpose. You do not touch him with affection. You do not whisper private words to him. You do not press your face into his chest. The body is a vessel. The soul has gone. Continued attachment to the body is, in the eyes of the Ordnung, a kind of weakness, a refusal to yield to God's will. For 3 days, the body lies in the front room of the house on a simple wooden bench. Hundreds of people come through. They eat in your kitchen. They speak in low voices. You serve them coffee. You accept their casseroles. You do not break down. You yield. That is the word, Gelassenheit. You yield. And the funeral itself is held in a barn or a home, never a church building, because we do not have church buildings. The bishop preaches for 2 hours about submission to God's plan. There is no eulogy. Nobody stands up and tells stories about the man who has died. To single out one person's life as worthy of stories would be hochmut again, pride. He is buried in a plain pine coffin in a plain wooden grave with a plain small stone, identical to every other stone in the cemetery. His name, his birth date, his death date. Nothing else. No verses. No flowers carved into the stone. Nothing that would say this man was different from any other man. If you want to go deeper, the full Amish Insider Guide is in the description. That is the script. That is what was supposed to happen the night Eli died. I was supposed to call the women. I was supposed to wash him and dress him in his white shirt. I was supposed to begin the yielding, but I did something else first. Let me back up. Let me tell you about Eli. We married in the autumn of 1965. He was 21. I was 19. Our courtship had lasted 7 months. He was the quiet son of a furniture maker in the next church district, and the first time he came to my parents' home for a Sunday visit, he barely spoke. My mother told me afterward that one is going to be hard to read. You will have to listen for what he does not say. She was right. Eli was not a man of words. He was a man of hands. He built our bed. He built our kitchen table. He built the rocking chair I was sitting in the night he died, the one he made for me when I was pregnant with our first daughter, Rebecca. He carved a small flower into the underside of the armrest where nobody would see it. He never told me he had done it. I found it years later when I dropped a sewing needle and went looking for it on the floor. When I asked him about it, he just smiled and said, "I wanted you to have something nobody else knew about." That was Eli, the whole man, in one sentence. We had 4 daughters and 2 sons. We lost a baby boy between Rebecca and Sarah, and we never spoke about him after the burial, because that was the script. You yield, you move on. But every year, on the day that baby died, I would find Eli out in the workshop, sanding a piece of wood that did not need sanding, his shoulders shaking just slightly, and I would bring him coffee and stand beside him without saying anything, and after a while he would nod, and we would go back into the house. That was how we grieved, in silence, together, without words. For 61 years, that is how we did everything, in silence, together, without words. And so when the doctor told me, 2 weeks before he died, that Eli's heart was failing and there was nothing more to be done, I did what I had been trained to do for 61 years. I yielded. I made his meals soft because swallowing was harder. I helped him to the porch in the afternoon so he could see the maple tree he had planted the year Rebecca was born. I read the Bible aloud to him in Pennsylvania Dutch in the evenings because his eyes were tired. I did not weep in front of him. I did not say the things I was thinking. I did not press my face into his chest and tell him that the thought of waking up in this house without him made me feel like the floor was disappearing underneath me, because that would have been Hochmut. That would have been making my sorrow into a spectacle. That would have been a failure of yielding. If you want to go deeper, the full Amish Insider Guide is in the description. He died on a Tuesday evening in November. The light was already gone from the windows. His breathing had been slowing all afternoon, and around 6 o'clock, his hand tightened on mine just slightly, just for a moment, and then his hand went loose, and I knew. I sat there for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, just listening to the silence where his breathing used to be. Then I sent for the doctor. Then I sent for the bishop. Then I sent for my daughters. They came. The doctor confirmed what I already knew. The bishop prayed. My daughters wept quietly and held me, and I held them, and we did everything correctly. We followed the script, and then I asked them all to leave. I told them I needed an hour with him before the women came to wash the body. The bishop hesitated, but he nodded. My daughters kissed my forehead and went home, and I locked the front door for the first and only time in my entire marriage, because Amish doors are never locked, but that night I locked it. And here is what I did. I went to the cedar chest at the foot of our bed, and I took out the small wooden box Eli had built me when I turned 50. Inside that box was a letter I had written to him over the course of 3 years. I had written it slowly, a few sentences at a time, late at night when he was asleep, by the light of a single candle so the kerosene would not wake him. I had written it in English, not Pennsylvania Dutch, because some of the things I needed to say did not exist in the language we spoke together. I had written it knowing I would never give it to him while he was alive, because giving it to him would have been hokmut. It would have been asking him to know me in a way our marriage had not been built to allow. I sat down in the rocking chair beside the bed. I held the letter in my lap, and I read it aloud to him. I read him every single thing I had never said in 61 years. I told him I had loved him from the second Sunday he came to visit, when he helped my father fix the harness on the gray mare without being asked. I told him I had been afraid the night of our wedding, and I had wanted to say so, but did not have the words. I told him about the baby boy we lost, that I had named him in my heart, even though we never named him out loud, that I had called him Samuel for 47 years inside my own mind. I told him I had seen the flower he carved under my rocking chair the same week he carved it, because I dropped a button that very Sunday and went looking for it, but I had never told him I had seen it, because I wanted him to keep his secret. I told him I had loved that secret more than almost anything else in our entire marriage. If you want to go deeper, the full Amish Insider Guide is in the description. I read for almost an hour. The lamp burned lower. His face in the lamplight looked younger than it had in years, the way faces sometimes do when the worry leaves them. I read until there were no more words on the paper, and then I folded the letter, and I tucked it into the inside pocket of the white burial shirt that was already folded on the chair, the shirt the women would put on him in the morning. I tucked it where nobody would find it, and I knew nobody would find it because in the Amish world you do not search the pockets of a dead man's burial clothes. You bury him in them. You bury what is inside them. And then I did the second forbidden thing. I climbed into the bed beside him. I lay down on top of the quilt my aunts had stitched for our wedding, the one with the double wedding ring pattern, the one we had slept under for 61 years. I put my head on his chest, the way I had wanted to put my head on his chest 1,000 times during our marriage, and had not, because tenderness like that, in the Amish way, is for newlyweds and small children, not for grown women with grown daughters. I put my head on his chest, and I listened to the silence where his heartbeat used to be, and I said the 3 words out loud that I had never once said to him in 61 years of marriage. We did not say those words in our world. We showed them. We did not speak them. But that night I spoke them. I said them 3 times. Once for the girl I was when I married him. Once for the woman I became while loving him. And once for whoever I would have to become now without him. Then I got up. I straightened the quilt. I unlocked the door. I opened the curtains so the morning women would have light to work by. I made coffee for them because they would arrive at dawn. And I sat in the rocking chair and waited. If you want to go deeper, the full Amish Insider Guide is in the description. The next morning, the women came. They washed him. They dressed him in the white shirt with my letter folded against his chest. We held the funeral 2 days later in our barn. The bishop preached for 2 hours about submission to God's plan. Nobody stood up to tell stories. He was buried in a plain pine coffin under a plain small stone in the cemetery behind the schoolhouse. His name and his dates, nothing more. And I yielded. I yielded perfectly. I served coffee. I accepted casseroles. I did not weep loudly. I was the model of an Amish widow, and the bishop's wife told my oldest daughter, "Your mother is carrying this with such grace." But the truth nobody knew, was that I had already done the thing that allowed me to carry it. I had broken the script for 1 hour alone behind a locked door, and I had said the things and done the things our way of life had told me for 61 years I was not allowed to say or do. And because I had said them, even once, even only to a man who could no longer hear them, I could yield in public. I could be the model widow because I had already, in private, been the wife I had always wanted to be. That was 12 years ago. I'm 80 now. I still live in the house Eli built. The rocking chair is still beside the bed, and I still sit in it some evenings when the light is low. I have told this story to no one until tonight, not my daughters, who would not understand, not the bishop, who would call it Hochmut, not even my sister, who has been a widow longer than I have, and might have understood best of all. I am telling it now because I am 80 years old, and I have learned something I wish I had known when I was 19, and lying in a wedding bed beside a boy I barely knew. The Amish world taught me that yielding was the highest form of love, that silence was the deepest form of devotion, that a faithful woman does not make a spectacle of her own heart. But I think the world had it wrong. I think the deepest form of devotion is to let the person you love know that they are loved, not in hints, not in carved flowers under rocking chairs, not in coffee brought to a workshop on the anniversary of a baby's death, in words, out loud, while they can still hear you. I waited 61 years to tell my husband I loved him with my mouth instead of my hands. And the only regret I carry at 80 years old is that I waited until he could not hear me. If you grew up in a world where love was supposed to be silent, I see you. If you have ever held something back from someone you loved because the rules of your world did not allow you to say it, I see you. If you are sitting somewhere right now, listening to my voice, and there is a person in your life you have not yet told, I am asking you, please, do not wait for the kerosene lamp to burn low. Do not wait for the locked door. Do not wait for the chair beside the bed. If this story stayed with you, leave me a comment and tell me what part you will carry. And if you want to keep hearing the truth from behind the prayer cap, subscribe to Hannah, the Amish girl. There is so much more I have not yet said. If you want to go deeper, the full Amish Insider Guide is in the description. Until next time, say the words while they can still hear you. The silence will keep. The hearing will not.